All right. We thought that it's appropriate, while you're going to be doing the comparative analysis, to also introduce the issues regarding articulation. Now, this there's a lot of material available on this, so I'm just going to really speak to the key aspects today. But what we have done is we have uploaded a lot of this information to the Google Drive folder, and these will also be available for you on Blackboard. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to point you to the relevant policies. I do not think that it's necessary for you to go and read all the national policies. I think that the CPUT policy and articulation, credit accumulation and transfer is adequate. It's very detailed, and I think that if you familiarize yourself with the details of that policy and the annexures with guidelines to it as well, that is more than enough information. Okay. So don't get entangled here and national policies and stuff like that. It's just going to waste your time and it's really not necessary. All right. So let's say you have identified from your national comparability analysis or exercise, you've identified institutions potentially where students could come from into your program, or your students could actually go to that program. Okay, and so that's the point of departure. You have now identified these articulation possibilities. They're possibilities. Okay, now you need to make a decision. Are you going to approach this by setting up formal agreements with these institutions, and they can be national and international? Or are you just going to define these articulation possibilities and leave it to the students to decide for themselves whether they want to move on to another institution? It's important to define the articulation possibilities up front if you are going to be working with international partners, because there's an MOU that has to be signed between CPUT and the other institution, and then there's another policy that kicks in, which I'm not going to be discussing, so I'm just going to mention this to you now. There's an international policy at DHET that also defines what is meant by a co-badged qualification, a joint qualification, and a dual qualification. They have different meanings. So I'm saying to you, therefore, if you're operating at a postgraduate level, because international partners are usually, you've identified a institution out there that covers a particular area of specialization. You are keen to bring those specialists to CPUT to collaborate with you so that it enriches the program you're offering at CPUT. Now, as you start talking, you need to figure out, how is this partnership going to work? And how do we define the MOU? And what are the articulation possibilities? And are we going to be issuing certificates jointly? Are we going to be issuing them separately? All of those kinds of details. That's a whole different ballgame. And then it becomes quite complex. And there are other divisions within the institution that they need to be involved in, like the international office and like the DVC Research and Innovation. All right, an international, it deals with international partnerships. Okay, so I'm not going to talk about that. I'm going to talk just at the national level. I'm just talking of you looking at articulation possibilities nationally between CPUT and other institutions. All right, so it's important first of all to ask yourself, what is articulation, credit accumulation and transfer, and what are these possibilities? So to define the what. Secondly, it's important to ask, why is this necessary for this qualification? Okay, how will this add value to your qualification? And then how do you do this? So the presentation is structured around those 3 questions. So first of all, let's talk about the why. Obviously, articulation is an important issue in South Africa because it opens up pathway opportunities for students. Okay, so I think the previous Minister of Higher Education and Training, Leighton Monday, in the statement said there should be no ceilings for students ever. Okay, so that students do not enter in a particular academic pathway and then they hit the ceiling and they can't now progress to another level on the HEQSF or another level or another level. So that's the reason why the HEQSF has been set up in the way that it has, so that students can move from between institutions, from one qualification to another qualification, and therefore progress to the level of qualifications that they wish to pursue. Right, so therefore we are under an obligation to conceptualize these pathways, to think them through clearly, and to ensure that it's going to be possible for students to follow these pathways without us setting them up for failure. It's a very important point. It's one thing of making a pathway, it's another thing of setting students up for failure. If the gap between one qualification and another qualification becomes too big, who's filling this gap? Are you now leaving it with the student to fill the gap? They're not able then to necessarily be successful in the qualification that they are moving into, because this gap that they have to bridge is too big. And so the institutional policy requires you therefore to define this gap and to show how are you actually going to address this particular gap. And I'll talk about that in a minute. But therefore it's about paritative esteem between academic and vocational qualifications. As we can see in the HEQSF, it's about the fact that in the past there was a lack of progression routes. We're now trying to address that within the broader post-school education and training sector. So we're also therefore looking at articulation between the TVET colleges and the UOTs. Okay, so it's not just within the HEQSF, it's also levels below the HEQSF. Okay. And so therefore we cannot just block ourselves off from the fact that there are other sub-qualifications frameworks that we need to be aware of as well. And so in your field, and this is the question you need to ask yourself, if you're dealing, and I'm talking specifically about the banking sector, there are already trade and occupations defined here in this framework. How is that impacting then on what you're going to be developing within the higher education framework? So you need to therefore look at what are the other qualifications and how you're going to accommodate them. All right. Now we know.
So may I just ask you mentioned the whole thing with the TVET colleges. Now we are busy with postgraduate diplomas.
Yeah, but remember, I'm talking to the audience, and you may be doing a postgraduate diploma, but there are other people doing other qualifications.
Okay, but
not the entire audience is doing postgraduate.
Okay, yeah. But coming back to postgrad, is it necessary to bring in? Remember, there was already a diploma, there was already an advanced diploma. Must we still at postgraduate diploma level also bring in the TVET colleges?
No. Okay. Yeah. It's not appropriate for that level. But if you're developing a certificate,
you're
developing a diploma, very appropriate.
Yeah.
Okay, and even more appropriate sometimes in certain particular fields. Okay, because in design, for example, you're going to have private colleges. You're going to have TVET colleges. You're going to have a whole host of other kinds of providers at levels below your certificate, and you need to take that into account. Because ideally speaking, you would like to attract some of those students into your qualification. So how are you facilitating that? Through clearly defined articulation. Right?
And so in terms of articulation, students could let's say they don't have the correct matric or the matric marks are not good enough, they can do a higher certificate and then gain access to a degree on the basis of the lower qualification. But and also then maybe apply for credits or whatever, but there's no requirement that, for instance, the certificate equals the first year of a degree, etc. So it's not necessarily for advanced standing, it's just for access.
Okay. All right. So the important thing, which is the slide which I spoke about the previous time as well, is that we sit with the fact that, how do we ensure that there is a seamless articulation between higher education and the world of work, so the students can go up any one of these ladders. Okay, and I think that that's not so easy to achieve, and you need to think about that very carefully. All right, these are the different sets of legislation. So in the case of the Department of Higher Education and Training, it started off around 2014 when a report was compiled by a ministerial committee on articulation, and there was also advice given at the time from SAPWA, and SAPWA defined certain principles that should be captured into an articulation policy. And then there was a very iterative process of draft policies and comments and draft policies and comments, but that culminated then in the policy which is now applicable, published in the Government Gazette in 2017, called the Articulation Policy for PSET in South Africa, okay, post-school education and training in South Africa. Okay. Then the Council on Higher Education, the council that we are working with, has put together, obviously, we know it's also defined in the HETSF, but they have also put together a policy document. This policy document spans RPL, credit accumulation and transfer, and assessment. So this is an important document for us to work with. And the important thing here, which I just need to mention, which is in this particular policy that people don't always think about. Students may not articulate from a short course into a formal qualification. Okay, so if you think we're going to run this short course and that short course and this short course and that short course, and we're going to make lots of money, and then these students can articulate in a formal qualification, they are, according to the policy, not allowed to articulate into a formal qualification. So be aware of that. Okay, you cannot therefore map articulation within short courses into any of your formal qualifications. So you need to think about that very carefully. Even if people argue these are credit bearing, the CHE says no. Okay, because there is no quality assurance of those short courses guaranteed. Okay.
Just an observation. So a very long time ago when I did a master's, I did a course of based master's, UCT was offering these blocks. The word escapes me. With a test at the end, and so it was all nice and beautifully packaged, and 8 of them later, and a small thesis, you had your masters. But you had these visitors who came and optionally they could write the test. So it was a grey space.
Yeah, those grey spaces have been closed. This policy now prevents that. Okay, I think that's an important point. So now we've got units at the institution and centres where short courses are offered. Okay, just be aware of that. It's not an articulation route into a formal qualification.
Except that they can be considered for RPL purposes.
They can be considered for RPL, but not for articulation and credit transfer. So even if you offer that short course and it's, let's say, 30 notional hours, okay, and you're claiming now, okay, that is 3 credits. Those credits mean nothing. Okay? All right. Okay, so it's important therefore to look at these policies if you want to capture the detail, but like I said earlier, the CPUT policy, all of the details are in the CPUT policy. Okay, so you can find the detail there. Okay, So what then is meant by articulation, I think is important. And here, we're distinguishing between systemic, okay, and specific. So I'm going to just talk first about the two categories so that you're all just clear on that. I'm going to start with specific. So, let's say you want to set up an articulation agreement with another higher education institution, nationally or internationally. All right? Then that becomes an inter-institutional articulation agreement. If you are setting up an articulation arrangement with another academic department at CPUT, maybe specifically applicable in like the business faculty, then you're setting up an intra-institutional articulation agreement, which means you compile the agreement, you take it to Senate, it's approved by Senate, and it means then that students, once that agreement has been approved by Senate, you don't have to apply individually for each and every student who will be articulating, because you have an agreement. And if a student comes and says, I want to, for argument's sake, I'm just making it up, there isn't such an agreement, but I'm just making it up. Let's say there are 2 diplomas offered currently, or there are 2 streams often currently in human resource management in the business faculty. Human resource management, human resource development. Okay, let's say, they say, let's define an articulation route between these streams within this academic department so that students can seamlessly transfer from the one to the other. That would be an inter-institutional articulation arrangement. Once that is in place, they don't have to go and apply individually for each and every student who wants to come and transfer credits. Okay. Or if there is an arrangement between fashion and clothing management. 2 different academic departments, 2 different faculties, but why can there not be an articulation arrangement? So what is it then that you need to do? You need to see what is the extensive overlap between these qualifications. What are the common elements? And those common elements become automatically the modules, the subjects with credit values that students then can transfer from the one qualification to the next qualification and be given credit for that in the second qualification that they go to on the basis of the successful completion of that in the first qualification. Okay. Then the other thing as defined in the HEQ SF is vertical, horizontal, diagonal. Now I'm just quickly going to jump back to the slide that I had earlier because I need to just show you the HEQ SF again. Sorry, I don't have my mouse, so it just takes a little longer. Okay, so let's just look at the HEQ again critically. So we've got our diploma program, so logically here, articulation possibilities would be easy. Okay, these are vocational in nature, same levels, 5, 6, 5, 6. Not a big deal, right? Even similarly, from a 3-year diploma to a 240 credit diploma, or from a higher certificate or advanced certificate into a diploma. So you just basically need to analyze your curriculum for qualification A, let's say that's the higher certificate. Analyze your curriculum for qualification B, which is your diploma, determine what the gap is, and then determine what can be transferred from the one qualification to the next. Okay, these will be at the same level. Okay, relatively easy exercise to do. It becomes a little bit more difficult when you're now wanting to map an articulation pathway, let's say, from a higher certificate into a 4-year professional degree, or from a higher certificate into a 3-year professional degree, or from a diploma into a 4-year professional degree. Because you can't just say that the first year is the same of the diploma, is the same as that of a 4-year professional degree. It's not going to be. Why not? Because in the diploma, you have selected of the principles and the disciplinary theory only certain parts, certain elements. Okay, so it's a smaller selection, therefore, of that than what you will find in a 4-year professional degree. So in the diploma, let me make it real. Let's say in a diploma on clothing and textiles, there are elements of analytical chemistry. But it's small components of analytical chemistry, just simply so that students can understand the difference between different textile fibers. Okay, it's contextualized for that need so that they understand that, so that they can perform some textile tests and they can understand the difference in the tensile strength between fiber A and fiber B. But the student who is going to be doing a 4-year professional degree is most likely going to have a full subject or 2 or 3 in chemistry. So if you therefore are saying this first year is the same as this first year, you're mistaken. It's not the same. You need to do that analysis to actually show what is common and what is different. And you can only transfer what is common. Student can only get credit for what is common. If you make the gap too big, you're setting them up for failure. If you're allowing them to transfer from the diploma to the 4-year professional degree, and the 4-year professional degree has got substantial elements of analytical chemistry of a total credit value of, let's say, 40, but in the diploma, they had 10. Who must bridge this 30 gap of 30 credits? The poor student? With what? How? You see what I mean? All right. So I think that it's important, therefore, to consider what can be done and what cannot be done in terms of articulation. But what the slide then shows you is, for example, what is meant by vertical articulation, what is meant by horizontal articulation, and what is meant by inter-institutional and intra-institutional. So just to make it clear, vertical is easy because it's from one HQSF level to the next. Easy. From 6 to 7, from 7 to 8, vertical. Okay. Horizontal is at the same level. I'm doing an advanced diploma in management, and now I want to move over to an advanced diploma in project management. So I can transfer some of the credits that I've done here over to this qualification because it's at the same NQF level. But if I'm carrying over credits from this advanced diploma in management to a postgraduate diploma in project management, it's diagonal because it's at a level higher. You see what I mean? Okay, so you need to therefore, look at, and here it's very often where you have a 4-year professional degree and a diploma. So it's the one is in the vocational pathway and the other one is in the professional pathway. And you're cutting across pathways and you're cutting across levels. Then becomes a diagonal articulation route. You are required in all of the templates to define vertical, horizontal, and diagonal. So these examples are there for a reason. You need to go and translate the example to what is applicable in your context. Okay. And you need to use the terminology correctly. I mean, very often when people have defined rather complex articulation routes, and we have a number of very complex ones in radiography and biomedical sciences, and a whole number of departments. People have sent their documents to me, and very often my task was to look at, is this gap which they've identified, is that gap addressed properly? And is the terminology used correct? So that because this document can become a legal document. Students can take the institution to court on that. So it's really important that we need to define that here. Somebody's hand is up.
Mariam, I just wanted to clarify on the horizontal articulation, like because we just, for example, a department doing a particular course and not a range of many courses. So can the design, can an interfaculty articulation be part of the horizontal articulation? And also for the diagonal, like you say, and we're saying at the same time that it's not always acceptable because now it's challenging for students.
Yeah.
So mentioning that in a course curriculum will that not be challenging because now you're trying to bridge a gap there. You're saying you don't want it, but you still are showing it.
You see, if you have not yet set up these articulation arrangements, then you need to be careful in your wording. So then you must leave it open as a possibility, but you're not specifying. Okay, if you already have set it up, you can be specific. Right, so typical diagonal articulation would be between the advanced diploma in clothing and textile technology and the BSc degree in Stellenbosch University. That's about, that would be typically a diagonal articulation. Okay, because there are lots of commonalities and overlap between those programs.
Is it only that we can talk about entry into our program, like what we're accepting from other programs?
Okay, don't confuse admission requirements with articulation. You're talking of the qualification and up. And of the qualification and to the side, or diagonal, not into. Into is admission. It's different. It's not it's an articulation for that qualification, but not for this qualification. Okay, people confuse. Very often talk one level down. You don't need to say that because it's in your admission requirements. So you're talking postgraduate diploma, articulation to which other qualification? So you're standing in the qualification and you're looking up or sideways or diagonal. Alright. Alright. Moving on. So the credible methods therefore that can be used, and these are also clearly defined in the policy, is you can use agreements, like I've said, interinstitutional agreements or intra-institutional agreements. So those are credible, but they must be formal. And they must be approved by Senate. If they're not approved by Senate, you're on thin ice. Okay, anybody can challenge that, and then you're going to be in trouble. You can also use advanced standing, which therefore means it allows students an opportunity to gain entry into a qualification at a level higher than what they qualify. Okay? And you can use credit transfer. So where you're transferring credits, let's say from the advanced diploma in human resource management to the advanced diploma in development, and you are transferring credits. Subjects that are the same here, subjects that are the same there, so that you don't have to end up doing you've done 120 credits here, you don't have to go do another 120 credits. You can do the number of credits that are required. Just remember, you may not exceed more than 50%. So you cannot ever transfer from 120 credits to another qualification 90 credits, 60 and less, but no more than 50%. Okay, that's also in the national policy. So you therefore need to be clear on what can be transferred. Okay. All right. So how do you determine the gaps? The qualification standard of the CHB tells you what they will be looking for. They're going to be looking for the qualification types. Are these compatible? They're going to look at the levels, the level descriptors, the credits. They're going to look at professional body requirements. They're going to look at the disciplinary context. They're going to look at the exit level outcomes of the different qualifications. Is there a match here, or is this purpose very different from that purpose? And they're going to look individually at a subject level in terms of the volume of learning. So if you're saying subject A is the same as subject B in another qualification, is this 12 credits and that is close to 12? Or if this is 12 and that's 40, on the basis of what are you making that old? You see what I mean? So the volume of learning is important, and then other aspects like teaching and learning, like the research component in the BTEC level, etc. Okay. So how do you do this? You take qualification A and you do a full analysis of qualification A, subject by subject by subject. And you need to look at the level, the sample credit, the name of the subject description, the learning outcomes, and associated assessment criteria. And you compare that with an equivalent subject or close to in qualification B. And you determine, is there a gap? What is the gap? Then you need to ask yourself, how do I bridge the gap? Is the gap of such a nature the students can, with a little bit of extra help, bridge the gap themselves, or is the gap so big that you need to actually establish a bridging course, additional modules? You need to challenge students via other subjects in an existing qualification before they will be able to gain entry into qualification. Okay, and that happens at the institution. There are cases like these where people have to do additional modules of a different existing qualification before they're allowed to continue. All right, so that's what you need to go and determine. All right.
Sorry, Maria. So some of the artifacts that you would use for that is obviously the SAPA level descriptors, NQF,
Yeah.
but then also learner guides.
Yes. You need to basically take your subject guides, the learner guides, and you do the analysis on the basis of the learner guides, because that's the most detailed information you have. Right.
The learner guides are bad.
Yeah, well then you need to delve a little deeper. But I would start with that. So typically here's an example of good articulation statement. This is from the Advanced Diploma in Management. Now, Advanced Diploma in Management, as you know, is a rather generic type qualification. Okay, so this department had to think about, okay, who will they allow into this qualification and what is the vertical progression routes, etc. And they've defined it, and the important thing that I want to just point out to you is you have to think 2 qualification frameworks, because we have not yet left the old qualification framework, the non-HEQS qualification framework, behind us. We're still teaching BTECs. We're still teaching national diplomas. Okay? So, yes, after 2019, some of that is going to disappear in history, but at the moment that is still real. So therefore you will see that this statement makes provision for HEQS qualifications and non-HEQS qualifications. And the important thing here is there's a level difference. Okay? A postgraduate diploma and an honours degree is at level 8 on the HEQS. An honours, and there was no postgraduate diploma, was on level 7 of the old HEQS, of the old non-HEQS qualifications framework. So you must be careful here that you specify the levels correctly. In order to do that, you will see that in the policy framework, or in the policy, the CPUT policy, there's a comparative table, and I'm just going to scroll down to that quickly. There's a table that shows you the non-HEQS qualification types, and they were against 8 levels of the NQF, and it shows you the level, the credit value, and the nature of the qualification. And then if you go further down, it gives you the HEQS. So you need to go and look for the correct levels. When you write these statements, don't make them up. Okay? This information is available. There's a comparative table. That's what I'm showing you now, sitting side by side in the policy document. So you can see the old ones on this side and the new ones on the side, and you can compare levels. So it's always safer not to just work with the qualification title, but to put in brackets after the qualification title, the actual NQF level. So if you're talking BTech, Project Management, brackets, NQF 7, can vertically articulate to whatever will be applicable in an advanced diploma statement. Okay, can horizontally articulate into an advanced diploma, NQF level 7. This one is non-HEQS, that one is HEQS. You see what I mean? So be careful, there's a lot of technical detail here that you need to keep your eye on. Polly?
The name of that policy document?
Sorry?
What's the name of that document?
Okay, this document that I'm showing you now is a comparative analysis which I've done, but I will upload this also to the Google Drive and to LMS. But the policy is also already uploaded. But what is nice of this document, which the policy document doesn't have, I compiled this on request of the Senate Academic Planning Committee last year.
Because it's not on the CPUT repository, is it?
No, it's not. But here, it's helpful because it shows you an image of what it previously looked like. Okay, we were on this side, the other universities were on that side, that was the binary divide. With the HEQS, if that binary divide is disappeared, and the qualifications were re-scrambled and rearranged, and more levels were added, from 8 to 10. Okay, so the image is therefore that shows it to you, and it shows you the credit value and the NQF level. So the image, I think, is helpful just to position yourself. Right, but the document will be uploaded so that it's available for you to look at. Okay, it was already approved by Senate, so I'm not giving you documents that are not already in the public space at CPUT. Okay, I'm done. Just stop it there.
Did you want to wait through the example?